Well, good morning everybody. This is another live match film for you. This is a venue that most of you probably haven't seen before. This is Poolsbrook Country Park. It's an absolutely beautiful place to spend the day. It is a Sunday, so we are expecting quite a few walkers around here. The water clarity is quite clear, and as you can probably tell, there isn't any wind. There is bright sunshine. I'm not quite sure how that's going to affect the fishing, but it is an open match. The lads are up there. Chris Butley's running the match up there. All the lads are up there. I think there are 21, 22 anglers on the match today, but it's a venue. I've only spent about 3 hours here before. I've spent about 3 hours. I did a bit of a filming thing with Matrix, but as regards fishing a match, I haven't really got a clue how it's going to fish. I think it's going to be hard, but obviously anything can happen.
These folks who don't have to every day. 10 till half 3. Is everyone familiar with rules? No, I know it.
Peg one for Neil. Fancy it, mate?
Yeah.
Always. Yeah?
Always love it. It's a great peg.
There's many left, mate.
Should be 2.
There's not many left in here. Not many left in here. 29. 29. Is that down round there somewhere?
That is, yeah. So, yeah. If you're parked here, you just past Play Park.
Yep.
And then just to right.
Walk down.
What name is it?
It's Harrison. Peg 29 doesn't mean a hell of a lot to me. I am just round this corner to the right. This is the shopping cafe and everything, just so you know where we are. Kids play area there, so I'm round to the right there. Don't know a lot about it, other than it does narrow up there, so there could be a bit of a far bank cast. I'm not quite sure what I'll be casting across there for, but I'll just have a look at the peg when I get down there. $29. Look at that. Carpeted platform. Fantastic. Lovely and comfy. Well, there we go. You already know how clear it is. I was going to bring the pole on this match, I'll be absolutely honest, but I'll also be absolutely honest and say that I didn't get home until late last night from a match at Boston Lakes, so I was going to have to make some silverfish rigs up. I couldn't remember how deep this place was, so the last thing I wanted to do was late last night start making 10 rigs up to cover all different depths and stuff. So I've obviously got the feeder gear, as you can imagine, but I've actually brought a 13-foot match Waggler rod as well, so I'm going to fish the Waggler. I don't really know what sort of depth I'm going to be faced with. I have heard reports that on last week's match, and possibly the one before, conditions were similar to this. Fish were up in the water, it did fish hard, so I just think a Waggler approach, loose feeding maggots, slow sinking bait, might pick off fish up in the water, and obviously I can fish that shallow as well, but I am going to have a feeder approach set up for further out, so I'm a bit pushed for time, so I'm going to get set up and I'll talk you through everything once I'm set up. It's incredibly humid. I can't believe how hot it is. I think they have forecasts that we might get a storm a bit later on. It's just that sort of weather. It's really hot. I've got an 11-foot rod out. I've got the actual Horizon Pro Slim, because I know a lot of people will ask about that. I have no idea what sort of depths I'm looking at. I think wherever I'm fishing today on the feeder, I think an 11-foot rod is going to do it, but I don't know till I get a bomb on. So I'm going to get a bomb on, get out there, find out how deep it is. If I've got to put a 12-footer up, if I feel as though I want to fish further across, then obviously I'll do that, but I'll do that. It'll also give me an idea of how deep it is for the Waggler as well. So I'm just going to get an idea of what sort of depths we're faced with. As regards the feeder line, I can't find any features out there. I've got a count of about 3.5 seconds, something like that. There aren't any features out there that I can actually pick out. So I've got a line at 30 metres, which is just short of halfway. The bottom's nice and clear. I'm going to set the Waggler up now, just for those that are interested. All my Wagglers, everything's done on winders, all my the Wagglers and stuff that I carry. Horizon Pro, Waggler, 13-foot, simple as that. 4,000 Horizon reel with 4-pound Horizon mainline, and that is it. So I'm just going to get this plumbed up. I've got a feeling a lot of these feathers and stuff that are on the surface are going to be a bit of a problem today. There is a bit of a breeze on it now, as you can see, and it's blowing down this way. I've really got a feeling they're gonna have an impact today, all that stuff on the top. So that's something I've obviously got to bear in mind, and that is why on my feeder rig, whilst there is a high possibility of hooking a fish like a tench, there are carp in here as well. I am fishing braid. I was going to fish with a leader, an up and down leader, which is basically twice the length of the rod. That is what I normally do, but now I've seen what these feathers and stuff are on the surface. I think if I've got any sort of a shot leader with a shot leader knot, I think that's just going to attract all this stuff and make it really, really difficult to fish. So I've taken a bit of a chance on the feeder rig that's set up there on the roost behind me. I'm actually going to be fishing it with braid direct, so there isn't any sort of a knot through there. It is a nice soft rod, to slim, so if I do hook any bonus fish, I should be okay. So that's one of the key decisions I've had to make. So I'm just going to get this waggler plumbed up. It looks like I've got a nice dark background in order to see the float, and that is a line that I'm just going to be loose feeding maggots on, but I'm just going to get it plumbed up now and just see what sort of depth we've got. I've got to admit, that took me absolutely ages to plumb up then with the waggler. It's definitely deeper closer in, so within about 10 or 12 yeah, 10-11 meters of the bank, it is actually deeper than what it is where I want to fish the waggler. I want to fish the waggler at it's probably about 15 meters. I've got a good depth there. Probably can't make it out on this camera, but I've got the hook there in the hook holder, and the waggler is touching the end of the 13-foot rod. Okay, so there's probably a good 12 foot, maybe 12 feet deep. If it stays like this, conditions wise, it's going to be all right for the waggler. Like I said, my only concern are these bits of floating feathers and bits and bats on the top, but I mean, that's obviously going to be the same for everyone. Going to be loose feeding maggots on that line, that's the approach, but I am going to start on the feeder. So that took me ages. I've only got a few minutes now before I've got to get my bait and everything sorted out. We've had a bit of rain already. I've got the umbrella arm ready because they have forecast some rain a bit later on, but I'm not going to put that up yet, just so that you can see everything better on the camera. So I want to finish off getting set up, and I'll show you the side tray, the bait tray and everything. I've seen a couple of small fish rising down this edge down here. I've seen a couple of small fish, but I mean, I know there are lots of small fish here. Whether we're going to get amongst the bream or any tench or anything like that, I don't know, but this waggler approach is really about catch anything and catch through the water as well. Well, there's about a minute to this start. That rain has stopped, thankfully. To be fair, if it stays like this, I really fancy it, you know. I don't obviously know what the fishing's going to be like, but just the fact that it's so warm and we've got all this cloud cover now, you'd think that could only work in our favour. So I'll just quickly show you the side tray. It's one of the simplest side trays I've had in a long time, or the bait tray should I say. There we go. So I've got the F1 Dark, fairly damp, okay, but I'm not quite sure how ground bait is going to, how much of an impact it's going to have in such clear water, but obviously that's something we should find out. I've got a couple of pints of live maggots, as you can see, red and whites. Catapult ready obviously for feeding that waggler line. I've got some dead maggots there as well, red and whites. Okay, so they're all dead, as you can see, and then I've got worms there ready to go. I'm not going to feed worm at the start. I really don't know what kind of response we're going to get from worm today. Like I say, it is clear water. Some venues don't respond very well to chop worm, but it's something that's obviously an option. And in case anyone's wondering, because I know there are some eagle-eyed ones amongst you out there, I have got a mixture of reds and whites in there. The reason why I've got that is purely because last week I was told that a lot of the fish, they were all up in the water. It is deeper than what I thought, and I just felt that, and it's something that I've experimented with in deep water, is that lighter coloured baits just stand out better on the bottom. So my thinking is that because they're dead white maggots in there as well, it's just going to show the fish that there is bait down there, and hopefully it might help draw one or two extra fish down to the bottom. So I think I'm going to do something slightly different today from what you've probably seen me do before. I'm just really concerned about how clear it is, and I'm concerned that, you know, I am now at the moment fishing for bites. You know, it's all right saying there's lots of bream in here and stuff. I don't want to just go gung-ho, as they say, and start piling loads of worms in, chop worm. That might be what they want, but I just want to fish for bites, to be fair, and just feel my way into it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set that 30-metre line up with one of those. That's all I'm going to put in, one of those, and I'm going to open it up in the Time, good luck lads. I'm going to open it up in the water just to try and draw something in with ground bait and a few dead maggots, but then I'm actually going to start over the top of it with a maggot feeder just to fish for bites. If small fish are going to be a problem and I've got to be more selective after that, then that's fine, but it's just something I just really want to try before I start putting loads of ground bait in. So as you can see, there's just a few maggots going in there. That's all I'm putting in, and I'm just going to really lightly fill that feeder because I want this to empty up in the water, just so there's going to be a nice cloud through the water and a few freebies. I'm only going to put one in, and then I'm going to go over it with maggots, with a maggot feeder. One, two, three, and then I'm going to empty it. So that's emptied the feeder up in the water. That'll got some cloud going through. Then I'm just going to fire a few maggots in on that Waggler line and then start on the feeder. Can't really see any anglers around me, to be fair. I can only see where they're actually casting to on the feeder, but that's it. I'm just going to keep putting in, you know, about 10 or 12 maggots on that Waggler line. That rain looks like it's here again. It's going to be on and off all day by the looks of it. And then obviously on this Waggler line, I've got it set at full depth. I'll talk you through that when I start fishing it. But obviously the shotting pattern means that I can fish through the water if there's any fish up in the water, and you know, we might get bites on the drop if that's the case. And that's it. That is how we're starting. So because I'm fishing for bites, I'm just going to kick off with a single white maggot. Simple as that. I've got a size 16 hook on. I'm just going to kick off with it. Just putting a few maggots in, not too many, just so I can get a feel for how it's fishing. Get that braid down. Have to try and make sure that's going to be sinking properly today. I'm just going to butt rest it as well. And that's it really. That's how I'm just going to kick off. And the main thing is really just to keep those maggots going in. One thing we are going to get today, we're going to get a bit of background noise from the path behind me. You know, it is a Sunday. There are lots of people enjoying the country park today, so apologies for that, but that's part and parcel of fishing these sorts of venues on a weekend, especially when the weather's nice. That cloud cover definitely makes it feel a little bit better than that bright sunshine, especially with it being flat calm. There's some ripple up in the main part of the lake up there. I'm just going to be nice and patient to start with, and just try and get a feel for how it's fishing. Well, I've had 2 or 3 casts now with a maggot feeder, and I haven't had a single sign, so that obviously wasn't the way to go, was it? But I just thought that might be a nice way of feeling my way into it, just to get a feel for what's out there, whether there be roach, perch or anything like that. So what I'm going to do now is, I've just chopped some worms up, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to switch this feeder to a cage feeder, or a plastic cage feeder. This is one of the Horizon ones. I'm going to leave the double white maggot. In fact, no, not. Let's change it. Let's put double red on. Good old faithful double red. I've actually got a size 16 hook on, which is a bit smaller than what I'd want normally, but I'm just trying to get a bite at the minute, aren't we? So what I'm going to do is just put a little bit of that bit of worm there is a bit finer chopped. So just a pinch of worm there and a few maggots, and then obviously in the ground bait as well. Just have a couple of casts with that. I haven't seen or heard about any fish being caught yet, but I can't really see anybody anyway. But this will obviously get some ground bait going in, and obviously the worm might make a difference as well. I've obviously started off really negative, and that's not been the way to go. Not initially anyway. I've got a heavier feeder on than what I actually need at this range. It's only 30 metres I'm casting. Braid direct, which is obviously super easy to get out there, but normally I'll be fishing there with a 20 gram feeder, something like that. But I've actually got a 30 gram feeder on, and that's because I've got to make sure that I've got to get that braid sunk as quick as possible. And the 30 gram feeder is just straightening that braid a little bit quicker. Still got my tip under the water, as you can see. I don't like doing this when I'm fishing conventional. I don't mind with a method feeder, because if you get an early bite on a method feeder, you just feel it anyway and the fish is on. But I don't normally like doing this on a conventional rig because you might have a bite and not see it. However, the water's so clear that even though my tip is under the water there by about 8 to 10 inch, I can still see the tip. So if I get a bite, I am going to see it. And that braid has sunk now. There we go. And that's it, we're fishing. So I'm obviously just going to have a few casts with this with the ground bait feeder on now. Let's just see if we can get our first indication. But the main thing is obviously got to keep them maggots going in on that Waggler line. Well, we've been fishing 30 minutes and I've just switched to a smaller cage feeder and I've emptied 2 up in the water with a few dead maggots in. And I've just cast over the top with double dead red on, and just as I was tightening up, I've just had a tiny little indication. 100% a bite, or an indication anyway. I'm not suggesting it might have been a liner, but it was a definite sign. So maybe it's a case that the fish are up in the water and it might suit a more active approach rather than just sitting there. I've got to admit, I don't really know what we're fishing for on these pegs. I don't know if we are sitting for bream, trying for bream, or whether it's going to be about silverfish, you know, roach, perch, I don't know. Well, we're just coming up to the hour stage and had 3 tiny little indications. I've just had a fast rattle on the tip on a single and that's come off. Tiny little roach just on single maggot. They're not really the fish I'm fishing for on this line, but that was a fish that was too small for what I'm wanting to do on this line, to be fair. So just going to go back to double maggot and just get back out there. It's good to get an indication. Just keeping a bit of bait going through, trying to get some ground bait falling through the water, just trying to draw something down. But I will be thinking about going on the Waggler shortly if things don't improve. And when that time comes, I am going to put some bait in on this line. It might be a case of it just needs resting. Well, we've been fishing now exactly an hour. That sun's just trying to break through. I haven't caught. I've had 3 little indications. One of them I picked up on him. There's a tiny little roach on it, as you saw, but I wound that off. Tiny little fish. I'm now on double dead red maggot on a size 14, a bit more positive wise, and I haven't had a sign. The lad on my right's got a small skimmer. The lad on my left, I think he's just caught his first fish, and he's on the feeder as well. 2 downs fishing the pole. Other than that, I haven't heard anything. I don't really know what's happening. So I'm obviously thinking about having a look on that Waggler line now. I've been religiously feeding it, loose feeding just maggots on that line, and I'm going to have a look on that just with single maggot. But I think what I am going to do is, you know, this is just an open match. It's not a big qualifier or a team match. So I think what I'm going to do is, I've obviously started off really negative and it's not worked. I'm not saying it's been the wrong thing, but it hasn't worked because nobody else is really catching at the minute. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a slightly bigger feeder on, and I'm going to put some bait out there on that 30 metre line when I come off it. So I'm just going to set it up. I'm going to be much more positive. Put some baiting on it. I'm going to put some chopped worm in there and some dead red maggots, and just leave it whilst I actually have a look on this Waggler line. Just to try it, just to push it, just to see if a bit more as a positive approach will work. I know that on venues like this, and from what I hear, it can be a slow start and the fish can suddenly turn up, and when they turn up, that's when, you know, they can be settled and you can have a run of fish. So I'm just going to risk it. I can't see any point in being really negative on this line now. There's no reason to, so I might as well push it. So I'm just going to fish this out. I'm going to give it a couple more minutes. If I don't get anything, I'm going to put some bait in on it. Put some bait in and rest it and have a look on that Waggler line. Well, that's been 10 minutes on that cast. which is the longest cast I've had so far. I haven't had an indication, so I'm going to set this line up now. I'm going to feed it. It's been just over an hour. A lot of this stuff on the top's actually cleared now, which is great. And there isn't any out there, it's only just here around the net, which is brilliant. So, in fact, one of those maggots has been nipped. Can you see? I didn't actually see a bite on that cast, but as you can see, something's had a go at that. But I'm still going to do what I said. I'm going to put a bit of bait in. I'm not going to go mad. I'm going to put a bit of bait in and just try and set it up whilst I have a look on the Waggler line. So I'm going to put some worm in. I'm going to have 2 or 3, probably 3 casts, I think. I'm not going to go mad with each cast, but as you can see, I mean, for how many bites we've had, you know what I mean, I can't really go, doesn't warrant putting tons of bait in. But I think I'm going to put 3 of them in. I think what I'll do is I'm going to put 2 in on the deck. You can tell I'm thinking of this through whilst I'm actually whilst I'm actually doing it. I'm going to put 2 in on the deck, and then the other one I'm going to open up on the top, just so that that last one puts a bit of cloud in the water, you know, so if it does draw any fish in, then there's already 2 feederfuls down there on the bottom, so they'll be undisturbed then while I have a look on the Waggler line. That's 1 in. Put another 1 in on the deck. I'm not packing this ground bait in too tight, as you can imagine, with me emptying it so quickly, but these feeders empty quick, as you can see. Nice big holes on them. Like that one. Go down to the deck. Just give that a few seconds just to let the water get to it. In fact, while that's emptying, I'm just going to quickly feed that Waggler line, set that up. Conditions are nice for the Waggler now. If they stay like this, it's just a tiny bit of ripplet in it out there, as you can see, but I've got a lovely dark background of those reflection of those trees, so I'm going to be able to see the float easily. I'll show you the float rig and everything in a minute. And this one, I'm just going to empty this one up in the water, this one. So I want this one even lighter, an even lighter squeeze on that one. I'm going to give it about a second drop before I empty it, and that'll put a nice cloud in the water. 1, there we go, and that's it. I'm just going to leave that now. When I do go back on that, obviously I'll go on there a little bit stealthy with a little feeder on, just because if there is anything settled on it, then I obviously don't want to disturb it. Well, I did have a bite on that cast, didn't I? So whether that's the right decision or not, I don't know. Maybe I should have had another cast on it, but we're here to enjoy it, aren't we? So it's not life or death if I've got it wrong. So we've already talked about the depth, as you can see. So what I've basically got is, shotting pattern wise, I've got it so that the last 1.5 meters or so is just strung out shot. Okay, so my last shot is there, there's the hook, the last shot is there, another shot there, another shot there, just old school shirt button style, like that, all the way up. And then I've got like a double bulk at half depth. Just going to kick off with 1 maggot on, just see what happens, see if there's anything out there. But it'd be nice to get a few bites on this, but we're obviously hoping that some fish are going to settle on that feeder line as well. Get that line down. You see that red tip, nice. The Waggler that I've got on it's a matrix loaded Waggler, so I don't need much weight down today, because I was just fishing through the water. So it is an insert Waggler. The bulk, the loaded bit of the float, and the 2 double bolts basically take it to the insert, and then it's just the droppers that then take the insert down. That shot quite nice like that. So that lifted a little bit then. I've got it so that I'm just on the bottom. Like I say, it is a little bit deeper coming this side. As you get towards me, it does actually get deeper. And I've just got a single white maggot on at the minute. But I am over depth. Obviously I can shallow this up at any stage if I feel the fish are shallow. and whatever happens, you know, I'm going to be on this at least 15-20 minutes at least, even if I don't get a bite, because that's the amount of time, the minimum amount of time I really want to leave that feeder line before I go back on it, if that makes sense. So this could be one of them scenarios where you end up fishing a line that you might not necessarily get bites on, but you're doing it purely to, well, the main reason is to rest your main line or rest the feeder line. That lifted ever so slightly, and we've got one. It's only the second cast. Just such a slight lift, hardly noticeable. What we got? Perch. There we go. So we're off the mark. Brilliant. And it was as the float was settling as well. Just as it settled. There we go. Those plummet fish. Be nice if they kept coming, wouldn't they? Lovely. We're off the mark. We finally got one. So that's it now. That's given me loads of confidence in this line now. Single white maggot. Just hooked through the pointy end, as they say. That's it. Well, it's really encouraging. I may only shallow up, I think. Like I say, it is over depth a little bit. I may have had a better bite if it had been, you know, more dead depth, but that's something I can play around with. The thing is, when you're fishing over depth as well, I just feel as though you've got a chance of picking better fish up. You know, if there's any skimmers down there, or any, obviously there's a chance of a tench, but any bottom feeding fish, and it just stabilises it if there is any tow. I've just cast the Waggler out and the float didn't settle. So I've struck, and look what we've got. How about that then? That must have been about 1 metre off the bottom. Wow, what a bonus that is. Well, here's me fishing for skimmers on the feeder. How about that for a bonus? So there's your lesson in fish being up in the water. Well, that obviously may warrant me fishing even shallower than what I am fishing now, but I think I am going to shallow it up a little bit anyway. But that's a beautiful bonus fish. Great condition as well. Well, I'm just going to shallow that float up a little bit. Here's me thinking this was all going to be about small fish, you know, little roach and stuff. Brilliant. Let's get that float shallowed up. I've got the float on just with 2 rubbers, as you can see. The actual weight of the float is 3 gram. Okay, and all I'm going to do is an old trick that my dad taught me, just to keep track of where everything is. I'm going to move it half a float length, just so that I know if it's not right, I can easily go back to that original depth. It's just one way of just being a little bit more accurate. Back on single maggot. I am actually fishing a dead maggot, and that's because here there is a barbless hook rule. Dead maggots just stay on a barbless hook a little bit better, don't they? There we go. Keep some maggots going in. Not trying to go too mad with the bait. I want to keep a bit of frequency there, just to help try and, you know, draw fish and keep them interested. I've just been playing around with the depth quite a bit with this Waggler. I've got to openly admit that I'm sure that the angler on my right, while I've been fishing this, has caught a couple of fish on the feeder, and I think the angler on my left has just caught a couple on the feeder. So I don't mind being absolutely honest with you and saying that the Waggler is a bit of a distraction at the minute, but I'm enjoying fishing it. Well, I'm just going to give this another few minutes. I could happily spend the rest of the match fishing this. But obviously I know there's just been a couple of fish caught on the feeder either side of me, so I obviously do need to go back to that for the interests of the match, obviously. But I did put some bait out there, so hopefully when I do go on that, there's going to be, you know, a fish there or 1 or 2 fish there. But yeah, this is not the method to be on at the minute, but I'm just so convinced that there are some fish out there, and if I can get it right, I think it'll only get stronger, but I haven't got it quite right yet. I've just had an incredibly positive bite. It's only been out there about 2 minutes. Just briefly switched the camera off. I can't believe how positive that was. It feels like a skimmer. First cast back. Such a positive bite, that was unbelievable. It just feels like we set that up for that fish. Similar size to the other one. Yeah, that's really encouraging. Really, really encouraging. Such a positive bite. I mean, we are fishing braid direct, double maggot. Let's get him in the net and get back out there. Well, it feels like we're fishing now, if that makes sense. Put 2 fresh maggots on again. I put some feed in that feeder that time, so we've left some food out there. That was such a positive bite, I can't believe it. I don't want to go mad with the bait, but I want to keep something going in. No ripple on it at all now. Just going to lower that tip a little bit now we can. Make sure I get a bit too low. That's it. Well, brilliant. The other thing as well is if I've got to rest this line, it might be the case that I can get 1 or 2 bites or 1 or 2 fish on the Waggler whilst I'm resting this line as well. So, you know, you could end up with 2 lines that have got fish on them, which is the ideal scenario, isn't it? If you have got to keep resting lines, that is. I can't believe, I wish I'd left the camera on for that, to be honest. I'd only just turned it off, but it was such a positive bite. Unbelievable. And I have fed worm as well on that line. When I set that line up, as you saw, I did put some worm through, so I'm going to keep that going in, just in little blobs. I'm not going to go mad with it, but just keep a bit going in. That's a bite. Oh, nothing there. Should have waited there. Should have been more patient there. Thankfully I didn't prick it, you know, I didn't feel the fish. So what I'm going to do is, because that first bite was so positive, that was quite a positive indication, what I'm going to do is now just slack line it a little bit, just to try and make sure that the fish are on when it goes, you know. Shouldn't have picked up on that, I know that, definite, 100%. Feels much better now, you know, when you can feed a bit and get a response, it feels much more confident. I'm obviously wishing I'd started a little bit more positive now at the start, you know, with ground bait, a bit of worm and stuff, but with it being so clear, bright sunshine, I'd heard it had been fishing difficult. I just wanted to feel my way into it, didn't want to go blowing the peg, but you know, you've got to start somewhere. So as soon as that braid's sunk, I'm just going to slacken the tip off and slack line it. Just more, rather than fish for bites, fish it more kind of skimmer bream style. Well, that was an indication then. At least I didn't prick that fish on that bite anyway, because that can be the kiss of death. You know, that's how you can spook them out of the swim. Well, we've been fishing it 2 hours now. I haven't had any other signs since that skimmer on my return onto this line. I got that 1 first cast, and then I had an indication second cast, which I picked up on. I haven't had another sign since. So just heard the lad on my left. I think he's got 4 skimmers now. I think he's got 4 on the feeder. Looks like he's been quite patient with it, to be fair. I can't see him casting in really frequently or anything. Lad on my right, I think he must have at least 4 fish. I'm not sure what they are. I think he's got 1 or 2 smaller skimmers. But I've just heard that Kyle Hartley's down to my right. I don't know how far down, probably 3-4 pegs maybe. I've heard he's catching a few fish on the pole, small fish. and that's really it. So, you know, I'm a little bit off the pace at the minute. I was hoping I was going to have a run of fish on this after it's had that rest, but obviously I haven't. So I'm just going to have a couple of patient casts on it now, just to see if a longer cast will pick a fish up or pick a bite up. And then if I don't get anything, I don't really want to just sit here aimlessly on the tip. You know, I want to be a little bit more active than that, even if it is the right thing to do. You know, I'm not here to break any records, as it were. I'm here to enjoy it, and I'm dying to have a go back on that Waggler. So I'm going to have two, or at least one more, a long cast on this. Just give it 10 minutes or so, have a cup of coffee, see if anything develops, and if not, I'm just going to do what I did earlier, and that is put that slightly larger feeder on and put a couple in with feed and just rest it, have a go on the Waggler and see if seeing if a rest will find me another fish. But obviously if I go on the Waggler and start getting a few bites, that'll be even better. I've literally just decided to rest that feeder line. I'm going back on the Waggler, and look what I've got. Looks like, I don't know if it's a big roach or another skimmer. Is it a skimmer? It's a good fish. What is it? It is. Unbelievable. It's the biggest one, I think. Fantastic. Well, who would have thought that the Waggler would have been best up to now for those? That's the biggest one so far. Fantastic stamp. Well, didn't expect that, I've got to be honest. I'll keep that maggots going in. It might just be a case of I've just got to keep swapping between the two lines, even if it's only 5 or 10 minutes on each one. Maybe that's what it's about, but super encouraging. A bit of a ripple on it now, as you can see. Left to right always looks much more inviting like that. I'm going to spend much more time on this. I think one of the things I need to think about is topping up that feeder line. But do you top it up blindly without just having a cast on it? I'm not quite confident in that today. I think if I'm thinking of topping it up at any stage while I'm fishing this Waggler, I think I'll be better off just having a cast on it. You might nick a fish, there might be one there, even if it's just a 4 minute cast. And if you fill the feeder up as well, then obviously while you're fishing that, trying to nick a fish, you've got a chance of obviously getting a fish, but you're putting bait out there as well. The wind keeps grabbing this Waggler when it goes above that tree line. Yes, got that one. I've got so much confidence in this now, I could easily spend the rest of the match on it, but what's this one going to be, a roach? That's really why I spent so much time trying to get it right earlier. I'll admit I spent too much time trying to get it right when I should have really been focusing more on the feeder, but I'm enjoying it. And that's the main thing for today. Still very quiet, I'm not really hearing that anyone's really catching. I'm literally only going to have a few more minutes on this before I have a cast back on that feeder and see if we can nick one on that. Just returned back to the feeder line. I've just had another bite out the blue, exactly the same as last time. Well, I've been in about 2 minutes, it's had a bit of a rest. Really get the feeling that I've not done it right today, but there are fish there to be caught, I'm sure of it. I'm already thinking about coming back again next week to do it differently. This is definitely going to leave me wanting more. It's 1:15 now. Another skimmer. Is that 4 we've got? Lost count already. I've only caught about 3 or 4 and I've lost count. How bad is that? That shows you how immersed I am in trying to work this out, but I know I just haven't done it justice today. I should have had a more positive start. You know, at the start should have fed a bit more and possibly rotating lines more, but I'll keep some bait going in out there, because what I'm not going to do is dwell on this line too long without any sort of signs like I was doing. I shall just rotate and go back on the Waggler line and give this line a rest. Kicking myself a little bit, I'll be absolutely honest with you. I know I'm here to enjoy it, I know I'm here to film it for you, but I just know that it wasn't the right approach at the start. But you know, you've got to start somewhere, haven't you? I'm just really pleased that one of the things I thought I was going to get today, I'll be absolutely honest with you, I mean, I spent 2 or 3 hours on this venue about a month ago over on that other bank, peg 6 or 7 or whatever it was, when I was doing a bit of filming with Matrix. And small fish were a problem. You know, when I say problem, obviously if you're after other fish, they're a problem. There were lots of kind of 1/2 and 1 ounce fish, roach, and they're certainly not a problem today. So that's giving me a chance to fish with smaller baits, you know, i.e. maggots. I'm not putting any pinkies or anything like that through, but on that particular day when I was here, to avoid those sorts of fish, you couldn't put a maggot on. You know, because the small fish were hammering it, so I had to fish with chunky bits of worm and 1/2 a dendron and that sort of thing. And that's what I kind of thought was going to happen today. But I thought I could get my head down on small fish on this line with just roach, perch, skimmers, anything that came along. Hence, that's why I started on the maggot feeder. I didn't want to be too selective, but the way it's fishing at the minute, it's fishing like you know, a skimmer venue, if you want to call it that. Because every fish I'm getting, apart from that little perch, really, I know I've had 1 little roach, but they're nice skimmers. So I'm not going to dwell too long on this. This is the second cast on this after a break, as you know. I'm not going to give it too long, 5 minutes tops, because every single skimmer I've caught, well, on the feeder, have been in like within 2 minutes. And when I have left it for 10 minutes, I just haven't had a single indication. So I'll probably have 1 more cast on this, and if I don't get one, then I'm not going to hang about. I'm going to come off it and go back on the Waggler and rest this and set it up for another fish again. Well, I didn't get any sign on the second cast after the rest, and I thought I'll just have 1 more cast before I come off it. So I loaded the feeder full of bait, because obviously if I didn't get a sign, I've left some bait out there, and I've got another skimmer, which is good. Not as big as the others, but I'm not being too picky. So that's 2 fish on this visit. I'm going to have another cast now, haven't I? The only thing is, I know I put quite a bit of bait in on that last cast, so I have just left quite a bit of bait out there, because I felt that if I was going to rest it to go on the Waggler, I wanted to leave some bait out there for another 20 minutes or so. So I'm not actually going to put any feed in on this cast. Oh, there's a couple of maggots in there, but it's mainly just ground bait. It'd be nice to get another one on this visit. It's definitely better than it was, but I'm kicking myself obviously because of that. Such a negative start. Been playing catch up with everybody. Always been 2 or 3 fish behind. Well, I've just had a spell of putting worms through. I've just kind of pushed it a bit more, and I haven't had a single response from it. It's just, I haven't had a single bite. So it's just completely dead. I don't know if it's that what's killed the swim, or whether it was kind of dead anyway. So what I'm going to do is, there's just over an hour left, about an hour and 2 minutes. So what I'm going to do is just push it. I'm just going to put some bait in basically and come off it and try and catch on that waggler, give it a rest. I've got some worms going in there, not too many worms because I've just pushed it with worm and I haven't had a response on it, so I've got plenty of maggots in there. I'm just going to gamble basically. If I cut back on everything, I think I might catch 1 or 2 fish, but that's not going to be enough because I'm too far behind. So I'm just going to put some bait in and just leave it and hope for a visit. Hope for a visit going into that last 30 minutes or so. So I'm obviously going to keep loose feeding this waggler line, even though it's not working, or I can't make it work. And just hope that this bed of bait might just give me a chance of a run of fish really late on, or in that last 30 minutes or so. Nothing to lose, to be fair. That waggler's definitely been a big distraction today, but I'm here because I want to be here because I want to fish the waggler, even though I can't make it work. But who knows, I might catch a few fish on it when I go back on it in a minute. And then whatever happens, I could obviously go back on this line, where hopefully there might be 1 or 2 fish settled. Quite a few maggots going in there. Basically, as regards how it's fishing, I've not really heard anything from the other bank. Lad on my left, he's doing well actually. I can't see him, but he must have, I don't know, 8 skimmers maybe. He might have more than that now. And it sounds like 1 or 2 of them have been a good size. So he's doing well. And lad on my right, I'm not really sure what he's caught. I'm sure he's caught a couple more from that first period, but I can't see or hear. And the other thing we've heard is that doing the best anywhere around here is Kyle Hartley. I don't think he's on the end peg, but he's down to my right anyway, a few pegs down. He's catching on the pole. He's been catching for quite a while on the pole. This final one, I'm just going to put just maggots in. There we go. Plenty going in there. Just had a couple of really fast bites on this. Shallow. Just got 1 shot down now. Single maggot. Lightning bites, nothing there. I'm guessing that they're roach. There's 45 minutes left. And I'm obviously not putting any fish in the net. Just heard, I think it's Andy at the next peg on the right. I think it is, I can't see him. I've just heard him say that he's actually got 6 or 7 skimmers and he's got a tench as well. So he's doing well. Lad on my left's not. I think it's Lee on my left, I think. Can't see him either. He's doing well. He must have got 8 skimmers now, easy, must have. And I'm still stuck on 4 or 5 skimmers, is it? And a couple of small fish. Just pushing that feeder line with worm definitely didn't do it any good. But to be fair, the swim was kind of dead anyway, so I can't really blame the worm. But it definitely didn't help anything, and it's just dead. I'm obviously not putting any fish in the net on this waggler line, but I'm still on it because I don't want to go on that feeder line just yet, where I've put all that bait in. So I want to give it a little bit longer before I go on it. But it would have been nice to put a few small fish in the net or something on this waggler to just kind of feel like I've worked something out, but I haven't. So that's definitely been a mistake for today, with the old waggler side of things. I must have spent half the day on the waggler, probably more, trying to make it work, but that's just been something I wanted to try for you, to do something different. Yeah, I thought I would have been getting more bites from little roach on this. Well, there's only a minute or 2 left now. They didn't rock up. I might get one before the end if I'm lucky. Lee's had a good finish next to me. I think he's had 3 now in that late spell. He's done things very different from me. that's been good. It's something to learn and know for next time. I have had a couple, 2 or 3 little indications on this, to be fair, just as though there may have been 1 or 2 milling about over the feed. Certainly weren't proper bites, you know, nothing materialised. It's like that. I've hooked one. How about that? Oh, it's a small fish as well. Well, how about that? I have had a couple of little indications, like I say, it looked like they were, as though there were 1 or 2 fish just milling about. But the tip never went, you know. I don't. This is a smaller fish, this one. There literally must only be a minute or 2 left, I think. But yeah, Lee's had a good finish, you know, it just, oh, and that one's come off. Oh dear. That was about 3 or 4 ounce. That's it. Well, I nearly had one at the finish. It was only about 3 or 4 ounce skimmer, but yeah, it's been a very, very interesting first look at this venue. Well, you've seen my approach. I don't think either one of them was right. Well, I pretty much know that. The Waggler wasn't right. I spent over half the match trying to make it right. I'm pretty sure that there were some fish out there to catch, but that certainly wasn't the way to do it. So I've already made my mind up. I'm definitely coming back here. You know, it is a really nice place to come and fish. And obviously what I've seen today, what I've witnessed here, that's before I know any of the results. I know that this would definitely lend itself to a very different approach, but one that is a style of fishing that I enjoy, and that is, you know, fishing a couple of lines, rotating lines, and that sort of thing. So I'm definitely coming back here. It could even actually be next weekend, so hopefully I'm going to get a chance to film that for you, where I can fish a completely different approach. So for me, you've seen what's happened, you know, the Waggler line never got going, and then I was ducking and diving a little bit on that feeder line, but then as soon as I've tried to push it, that's when it's killed it. So definitely a lesson learned there, and you know, it's been a really interesting first look at the venue. Lee has had a great, he'll have got a lovely net of fish, so there is obviously a better way of fishing it. And that's the approach that I'm pretty much going to, that's how I'm going to fish next time I come. And Andy on my right, I know he has been pole fishing as well, but I can't see him. I know there's been quite a few pole fish caught, so I'm going to get some gear packed away, because I want to film some of the weigh in for you, because I want to show you the kind of nets of fish, rather than you just see some weights. I want you to have a look at what the fish are, and I want to see whether they're made up of small fish or skimmers or proper bream. But yeah, it looks like it's there's a 2-pronged approach, I think, here, and yeah, it's been a really enjoyable place to fish. Just up with Kyle now.
Jump out.
I think he's got a lovely net of fish. Look at that lot.
Pleasure to watching.
Look at that. Oh, that's on you, mate.
Yes,
what a fantastic net of fish. That is all on the pole.
27 dead. Well
Fantastic.
Done,
well done, Kyle. Brilliant, mate. Just one way. Proper ducking and diving. Yeah. Ducking and diving, and then I went and pushed it a bit harder, and it just killed it. Quick look at them. There we go. They're lovely conditioned fish, aren't they? Brilliant. This is Lee's weight. He's got a beautiful net of fish. Look at them. That's 25.5, just on a feeder approach. There we go, 2 completely different nets of fish. 1 feeder, 1 pole.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Well, that just shows, you know, 2 completely different approaches there. You've had Kyle pole fishing, you've had Lee there who's just fish feeder. I've tried to do a bit of Waggler, but that obviously didn't work. But it just shows you that the fish are there with the right approach. It looks like everyone's had a few bites. And it even sounds like Neil on peg 1 has actually caught the resident sturgeon as well. He's done really well to land that. Well done, mate. Well, it just shows you all 3 anglers have fished completely different from each other. Kyle's won the match. Well done, Kyle. He's won the match on the pole. Neil, who's second's caught everything on a method feeder. And then you also got Lee, who's caught everything on a conventional feeder. So there we go. I'm definitely going to be coming back here soon, within the next week or 2, hopefully, to tackle this venue, to try a completely different approach. But it's been thoroughly enjoyable, really enjoyable. You know, the pegs are comfortable, even the paths all the way around are really easy to get your bar around, and it's been a good set of lads as well. If you're interested about booking on any of these matches, they are open matches on Sundays. Just head on over to the Poolsbrook Lakes match group Facebook page. That's where all the matches are advertised, all the results are on there as well, and like I say, it's an open match scene anyway. So hope you've enjoyed this bit of an insight into this live match, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next one.